Long Island medium Theresa Caputo at last has made the decision to distance herself from all obligations and familial ties. He has endured nothing but suffering and disappointment for a long time, and his sacrifice has gone unappreciated. Now that he is free and wants to start over, he has entirely abandoned his family. Standing at the ocean's edge, Theresa Caputo felt the salty wind envelop her like a long-lost friend. A piece of her past was carried away by each wave as it slammed on the coast. She had dedicated her time, love, and energy to her family for years. But all she had gotten in exchange was unending disappointment, betrayal, and heartache. The media had studied every part of her life, her children had turned against her, and her ex-husband had only brought her grief. She had made an effort to keep everything together, thinking that time and sacrifice would eventually mend the scars. However, she had been mistaken. She never had enough, no matter how much she gave. She had finally made up her mind last night. She left a solitary note on the kitchen counter, packed her things, and departed without turning around. "I have sacrificed everything for you, and I have lost myself in the process. I'm finished." She had not experienced serenity in years until she found herself standing on the shores of a strange town. No more late-night sobs over family drama. No more phone conversations full of accusations, and no more bearing the weight of everyone's suffering. She had freedom. Far from Long Island, she rented a little beachside cottage from her previous life. She read, went for walks on the beach, and rediscovered herself during the day. Her heart's burden gradually started to lessen. She no longer had to be the strong one, the healer, or the ideal mother. She was just Theresa, a woman searching for happiness once more. A stranger came up to her one evening while she was sitting on her veranda, taking in the sunset. Eleanor was a sweet-hearted woman who ran a tiny local bookshop. Eleanor remarked, "I've seen you around," with a kind smile. "You have the look of someone who's learning how to breathe again." Theresa laughed. "I guess you could say that." "Well, if you're looking for a fresh start, I could use some help at the shop," Eleanor replied. "No pressure, just a friendly place to be." Theresa felt a glimmer of enthusiasm for the first time in years. Perhaps, just possibly, a new life was starting. She grinned at Eleanor, as well as the future she was at last embracing. "I like that." Theresa Caputo entered her new life, one in which she was at last free, with those few words. But Jessica sat tensely in the community center's waiting room, her hands covering her growing tummy in a protective manner. Since her father's untimely death 6 months ago, she had been having emotional difficulties. He had always been her pillar of support, the person she confided in and sought guidance from. She now wished she could hear his voice one last time as her due date drew near. Theresa Caputo's enthusiasm on Long Island medium gave her hope, even though she had always been dubious about mediums. There was a possibility that her father might have a message for her. Theresa's friendly face and distinctive blonde hair instantly put Jessica at ease when she entered. Sitting opposite her, Theresa briefly closed her eyes before inhaling deeply. Theresa looked straight at Jessica and said, "Honey, I don't know who this is yet, but I have a very strong father figure stepping forward." Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "My father," she muttered. Theresa gave a nod. "He wants you to know that he has been by your side the whole time. He continues displaying a baby, a little female, to me. Do you have a girl on the way?" Jessica nodded, gasping. "Yes, how did you?" Theresa grinned. "Tell her I've already met my granddaughter. Your father advises." Jessica covered her mouth and sobbed. "Oh my God." Then Theresa grabbed her hand. "He wants you to cut back on your worrying. He claims to see you laying in bed at night, worrying excessively about everything." "Jessica, you're going to be a fantastic mother, as I always knew you would be," he continues. Jessica sobbed more. "That sounds just like what he would say." Theresa laughed, "And he's not finished yet. He is discussing a necklace. Do you wear anything that belongs to him?" With another gasp, Jessica reached under her sweater and took out a tiny gold pendant. This belonged to him. I put it on every day. Theresa was aware that the death of a loved one was weighing heavily on this woman's heart. She connected with the woman's energy by reaching out with her spirit. Theresa said softly, "Your husband is here," in a kind voice. "I sense that he still loves you. Keep it close because I'm always with you when you hold it," he says. "He also wants you to know that he has already blessed this child, my dear. Your granddad will always be keeping an eye on your little girl." Overcome with relief and affection, Jessica put a palm over her heart. "I'm grateful," she muttered. "Thank you very much." Theresa gave her hand a squeeze. "No, honey, I'm grateful, Dad. It was he who ensured you received this message." Jessica felt as though a burden had been removed from her chest as she left. She wasn't by herself. In the afterlife, her father continued to be with her, keeping watch, offering guidance, and, above all, loving her and her child. But Theresa Caputo, the well-known Long Island medium, made the decision to give archery a try on a clear, sunny Long Island morning. Having heard about it from friends and seen it in movies, she had always been interested in it. She believed it may be a wonderful way to redirect her energies after all the deep emotional work she had done interacting with ghosts. Standing at the archery range with a teacher by her side, Theresa meticulously demonstrated how to aim, grip the bow, and release the arrow. She was distracted from the normal chatter of spirits attempting to approach her by the weight of the bow and the tightness in her arms. However, as she concentrated, she experienced an unfamiliar and unexplainable feeling, as if someone were standing just behind her, observing everything she did. The temperature around her appeared to plummet as she pulled back the bowstring. The air felt heavier than normal, and she let out apparent puffs of breath. Her pulse accelerated. She whispered to herself, "Okay, focus, Theresa." Then, suddenly, a message was delivered so forcefully that she almost stumbled. "Theresa, she's here. Tell her I'm still with her," a voice softly said in her ear. She didn't recognize the voice. It was feminine and gentle, but it was urgent. Theresa closed her eyes for a time and lowered the bow. The ghost persisted. "Assure her it's all right. I'm still here, even though she can't see me," the voice went on. Observing her hesitancy, the instructor said, "Are you okay?" Theresa turned to him and smiled as she tried to gather herself. "Yeah, just giving someone who needs space some space." Theresa inhaled deeply and turned back to the objective. She was unable to ignore the spirit's energy because it was so powerful. Half to herself, she muttered out loud, "Who are you?" She could feel the warmth and comfort of a mother's embrace all about her, like though someone who truly loved was reaching out. The ghost appeared to whisper once more, telling Theresa to turn her gaze to a certain object. Theresa furrowed her brow and murmured to herself, "Wait a minute." Following the spirit's energy pull, she directed the arrow. The arrow was released steadily and went directly to the target's center. Perfectly hitting the bullseye is a rare accomplishment for a novice. The ghost's voice came back, softer this time, "Express your pride to her." The message was obvious, and Theresa grinned to herself. She was fully aware of its intended recipient. In times like these, her mother, who had died years ago, had always been there for her in spirit. She giggled and turned back to the teacher, saying, "Well, I think my lesson just got a little more spiritual." The teacher only nodded, obviously intrigued yet perplexed. "Miss Caputo, you seem to have a gift." Theresa smiled knowingly. "You don't know." The air around her became lighter as she packed to go. Both she and the spirit were finally at ease. She needed to hear the message, and the archery session had provided the perfect concentration. Once more, she had made a connection between the living and the dead in the most surprising ways. But as the sun sank outside and deep shadows formed on the walls, Theresa Caputo sat quietly in her reading room. After finishing a session with a client, she sensed a change in the atmosphere, the recognizable tug of spirit energy. She closed her eyes and allowed herself to concentrate while the room's temperature slightly decreased. She saw the face of a woman as she tuned in. Her eyes were filled with anguish and a desire for something that felt just out of grasp, and her face was gentle and mournful. He wants you to know that he never saw it coming, and that it happened so fast. However, he is now at peace. The woman's hands trembled as she held Theresa's hand, while tears streamed down her face. That was him, indeed. We had traveled to the lake. We were both really thrilled on this bright day. However, the storm suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The river was too strong for him to reach me. Theresa's heart was still raw from the loss, and she could feel the weight of the woman's remarks. She sensed the two had bonded in a profound, unbreakable way, a love that was stronger than death itself. He wants you to understand that he was not in pain. When it happened, he was not afraid. You were in his thoughts, and he is pleased of the fortitude you have displayed since his death. Above all, though, he wants you to go on and not think about the hurt. The woman's tears were a mixture of relief and grief. She finally knew the answer to her long-standing question of whether her husband had found peace following his untimely death. She said, "I've missed him so much, but now I know he's watching over me." Theresa grinned gently, empathy brimming in her heart. "He's with you right here. He senses it every time you think of him. You'll sense his presence once more in the most surprising ways when you're ready. Have faith in that." The woman nodded as she wiped away her tears and felt a wave of serenity come over her. Knowing that she could now begin to get over the hurt of her loss, she gazed at Theresa with appreciation. Theresa inhaled deeply as the connection waned. She always felt privileged to assist others in re-establishing contact with their loved ones and providing them with the closure and serenity they so sorely needed. It served as a reminder today that whatever the difficulties we encounter, love never really dies. Theresa Caputo's Long Island house was peaceful on this particular evening, but she had no idea that it would be anything but typical. She had recently worked with a family to help them reach closure with their loved ones in a private reading. Theresa was sitting back drinking her tea, exhausted yet content, when she felt an odd presence. Clearly, there was a playful, mischievous energy in the room. Like she always did when she sensed a spirit near her, Theresa narrowed her gaze. She tried to concentrate by whispering, "Who's here?" Suddenly, a voice that sounded almost like it was trying not to laugh reverberated in her mind. "Theresa, you're not going to believe this," it stated. Curious, she froze. She questioned, "Who are you?" as she felt the weight of the unidentified ghost. The crowd erupted in laughter, and then the spirit appeared as an elderly man with a broad smile and a larger sparkle in his eye. "My name is Uncle Frank. Oh, and I have a joke for you." Theresa was surprised. She questioned, her voice trembling with interest. "A joke?" Uncle Frank gave a hearty nod, his spirit energy virtually bursting with happiness. "Are you ready?" he inquired. "All right, here goes. What do you get when you cross a snowman with a vampire?" Theresa laughed, already anticipating the joke. "Frostbite," Uncle Frank said, and the room burst into laughter, not only from Theresa, but also from the naughty spirit. Theresa was powerless to stop herself. She nearly spilled her tea because she was laughing so hard. Uncle Frank, my God. Wow, that was terrible. However, she was laughing so uncontrollably that tears started to fall down her cheeks. The ghost was still laughing with her. "I've got more where that came from." As Uncle Frank spoke, the atmosphere in the room became even more relaxed. The amusing incident escalated into a full-fledged fit of laughter. Theresa was unable to recall the last time she had laughed so hard. Joy filled the room as the spirit's energy spread like wildfire. Theresa wiped the tears from her eyes as the laughter subsided. Okay, Uncle Frank, you did me a good job." She inhaled deeply while continuing to laugh. "But I'm not sure I'm going to be able to look at a snowman the same way again." Uncle Frank's mischievous voice reverberated before she could finish. "That's the point, Theresa. After a long period of giggling, the spirit eventually said goodbye to her, his joyous energy lingering in the air like a comforting embrace. Theresa grinned to herself as the room returned to its customary quiet. That was definitely one of the best readings, she thought. I don't think I'll ever forget Uncle Frank's sense of humor. A night that had begun like any other had suddenly transformed into a moment that would never be forgotten, full of light, laughter, and the realization that sometimes the funniest things are spirits. Greetings, dear viewers, greetings from my channel. I'm Mina, and I hope you're having a great day. Remember to subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the video.